Aloha and welcome to A Course in Miracles. Today we're on the Workbook for Students, Lesson 16. And let's go back a couple of lessons to lesson 12, or actually 11. It says, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And 12 said, I'm upset because I see a meaningless world. Lesson 13 said that a meaningless world engenders fear. And then lesson 14 said God did not create a meaningless world. And I want to point out what it says here, that a meaningless world is impossible, and what God did not create does not exist. And everything that does exist exists as He created it. And it says here a really powerful statement. It says, the world you see has nothing to do with reality. It is of your own making, and it does not exist. And then lesson 15 told us that it's my thoughts are images that I have made. And it tells us that the thoughts that we think appear as images, and we don't recognize that they are nothing. We think them, and so we think we see them. And this is how seeing was made. We're not really seeing, it tells us, we're just image making. And this image making takes the place of vision, replacing vision with illusions. So here we are on lesson 16, which says, I have no neutral thoughts. The idea for today is a beginning step in dispelling the belief that your thoughts have no effect. Everything you see is the result of your thoughts. There's no exception to this fact. Everything I see is the result of my thoughts. And there's no exception to this fact. Wow. Wow. Everything I see. Thoughts are not big. They're not little. They're not powerful. They're not weak. They're just true or they're false. And these thoughts that are true create in their own likeness, and the thoughts that are false make their own likeness. There's no more self-contradictory concept than that of idle thoughts. What gives rise to the perception of a whole world can hardly be called idle. Every thought you have, every thought, contributes to truth or to illusions. Either it extends the truth or it multiplies illusions. You can indeed multiply nothing, but you will not extend it by doing so. And that sort of means that illusions are nothing, and we can multiply nothing. But in reality, we can't extend it, because the things of God are extended, like God extends Himself when He creates. And we extend ourselves when we create. But when we make illusions, we're not creating with God, and so we're not really extending anything. We're just making nothing. We're multiplying nothing. And so this is telling us that we don't have any idle thoughts. That, when I'm sitting around or you're sitting around thinking about things, crazy things, important things, just silly things, maybe hateful things, whatever they are, every one of those thoughts is creating all the time. And so we can't really just tell ourselves, oh, that was just an idle thought. It has no effects. But the Course is saying, yes, every thought I have has an effect. And it's either extending the truth or it's multiplying illusions. So, besides your recognizing that thoughts are never idle, salvation requires that you also recognize that every thought you have brings either peace or war, either love or fear. Every thought is either bringing peace or it's bringing war. It's bringing love or it's bringing fear. So it's important to start realizing that our thoughts are creating the world we see, but also that we have the power to change our thoughts and therefore change the world that we see. And the negative thoughts that produce negative things that aren't like God, it's important that we begin to realize that those things are not real. I mean, they seem real because we believe in them, and what we believe in, we create. But in reality, they're not real because only what is eternal is real. Things that just pass are here for a moment like a cloud and then gone. The Course says those things are not real. I mean, they seem real at the time, but only what lasts forever is truly can be considered real. And everything in this world is temporal. I mean, all the things that we see and we think are so real, but the spiritual things like love and truth and God and what we truly are, these things do exist and they're eternal and they never change. And that's the kind of the idea, what we mean when we say something isn't real. We don't really mean that this chair that I'm sitting in isn't real to me. I mean, because for all purposes, for me sitting down, it is real. But it's already beginning to decay and go, and it's not going to be here very much longer. So the Course would consider that not real. And so it's important that we recognize for salvation, in order to find happiness and to find peace of mind, it requires that we recognize that every thought we have is not idle. It's bringing either peace or war, love or fear. A neutral result is impossible because a neutral thought is impossible. There is such a temptation to dismiss fear thoughts as unimportant, trivial, and not worth bothering about. But it is essential that we recognize them as equally destructive, but equally unreal. We will practice this idea in many forms before you really understand it. And you will begin to understand it more because as you actually practice it and you start applying it, and it'll come up again in other lessons, you'll begin to be able to use it. And I use it a lot now. I can see situations changing when I change my thoughts. Sometimes very quickly, You can go into a room or a situation that seems very negative and change your thinking and just watch things around you change and become more loving and more positive. And it's beautiful and it's powerful. And when things like that happen, you begin to understand what the Course is talking about and how powerful this Course really is. So, we'll have lots of times to practice this idea in many forms. And then, so implying the idea for today, here's the exercise. Here's what we do. Search your mind for a minute or so with eyes closed. And actively, we're not just letting it come to us, but we're actively seeking not to overlook any little or insignificant thought that may tend to elude your search. This is quite difficult until you get used to it. You'll find that it's still hard for you to not make artificial distinctions. You know, you say, oh, that's just a trivial thought, or that's a really heavy, important thought. Every thought that occurs to you, regardless of the qualities that you assign to it, is a suitable subject for applying today's idea. In the practice periods, first repeat the idea to yourself. And then, as each one crosses your mind, hold it in your awareness, or you tell yourself, this thought about blank, whatever it is not a neutral thought. This thought I'm having about blank, whatever it is not a neutral thought. As usual, use today's idea whenever you're aware of a particular thought that arouses uneasiness. The following form is suggested for this purpose. So if you have a thought that's causing you to feel uneasy, even if it's just a little bit uneasy, this thought about, and whatever it is that's making you feel uneasy, is not a neutral thought, because I have no neutral thoughts. So whenever you feel uneasy about something today, just like, what thought is causing me to feel uneasy? Instead of dismissing it, oh, that's nothing, that's not true, or whatever, just say, this thought about whatever it is not a neutral thought, because I have no neutral thoughts. 4 or 5 time practice periods are recommended. And here, this is where you'll probably want to set a watch or use something to remind, some way to remind yourself you want to do this 4 or 5 times today. You know, sometimes it'll say, just do this once in the morning, once at night. Sometimes it'll say 3 times. Sometimes it'll say every so many minutes. But it's important to get the benefit from this mind training part of the Course is to do it like it says as best you can. And if you can't, don't, condemn yourself. Just start, okay, now I'm going to try and follow it as closely as I can. So today, 4 or 5 practice periods are recommended, and if you find them relatively effortless. But if it's a strain for you to do this, there will be 3 will be enough. The length of the exercise period should also be reduced if there is discomfort. And the length of the exercise period is only like a minute or so. So it's not really, like even it's asking you to do anything for 5 or 10 minutes, but just a minute or so. You may, if you're feeling really stressed out about this idea, and the ideas in the Course, you may resist them. Just reduce the time a little bit, but still try and do it. And so that's lesson 16 of the Course in Miracles. Have no neutral thoughts. I send out love and peace to you. Thank you for doing this course with me, and I will see you tomorrow.